Hey there, I'm Josh and welcome to my video. Today we will be replacing the front brake pads of a 2006 Dodge Charger. It's a fairly simple procedure and I'll walk you through step by step. Now before we can jump right in, let's take a look at the equipment we'll be needing today. These are all the tools required for our job. You'll notice that new brake pads and brake fluid are absent. I've recently changed my brakes prior to shooting this video, so I'll just be going through the motions as if my pads were warm. That being said, let's talk a bit more about these tools individually. So this here is a 5/8 socket. This socket is to grip the lug nut key, which is this piece here. This piece is engineered to fit a specific bolt pattern, which we will need to remove the wheel. The setup will be attached to a breaker bar, which is basically an extended non-ratcheting socket wrench. The length of this wrench allows for more force to be applied to the bolt, making it easier to remove. Here we have a C-clamp. This vise can be adjusted via the screw at the end. You'll need this to depress the pistons located in the caliper, which is essential since you won't be able to fit the new pads in place unless the pistons are compressed. This is a hydraulic jack. Pretty self-explanatory. Use the rod you see to the left to pump up the jack, raising the vehicle off of the ground. This here is a standard socket wrench. You also need a 13mm socket. This will be to remove the caliper bolt to get directly to the brake pads. I also have here a 13mm wrench, just to demonstrate a few options you have and choices. Finally, we have a simple Allen wrench. I'll need this to remove the rim cap to expose the lug nuts. The size varies depending on the rims that you have on your car. Mine are aftermarket rims, so the wrench was given to me when I bought the rims. Now that we've seen our tools, let's get to work. Using the Allen wrench, you're going to want to loosen the bolt holding the rim plate in place. We will then remove the plate and place it to the side, out of the way from our work. Once it's removed, you'll have easy access to the lug nuts for the next step of this procedure. With the lug nuts now exposed, I can begin to remove the tire. Start by slightly cracking each one of the lug nuts. I just want to loosen each one while the tire is still on the ground. The added resistance from the ground inhibits the tire from moving as we loosen the bolts. This added resistance also helps to provide more force to the work being done. Once all 5 lug nuts are cracked, we are ready to move on to the next step. Place the jack beneath the car, where the jack can come in direct contact with the designated jacket. There should be a clearly visible area indicated by an indentation for proper jack placement. This area is located in between the door and the wheel well of the car, closer towards the door. Now that we've found this, let's jack her up. Insert the rod into the sleeve at the back of the jack. You will engage the jack, causing the hydraulic arm to rise. Take it slow at first, making sure the jack is directly beneath the proper area. Once you make contact with the car, you're going to want to raise the car until it's off the ground like so. We need only enough distance between the ground and the tire to easily and properly remove the tire from the rotor. This is what it should look like. Now that this is done, pick the breaker bar back up and finish removing the lug nuts one by one. With the nuts removed, we can now go ahead and take the wheel off. Be careful when removing the tire from the rotor, as it does have a considerable weight to it. After you've removed it and set it to the side, we are left with a naked rotor. Please note the brake caliper in the upper right hand corner of the rotor. The remainder of our video shall be focused here. Now to change the pad. We will first need to open the caliper. The caliper is responsible for holding the pads in place as well as compressing them into the rotor, which is actually what causes the car to stop. To do this, we will need to remove the caliper bolt from the rear end of the caliper. This is the caliper bolt. Excuse the video, the space behind the caliper is a bit cramped. You're going to want to use your 13mm socket wrench or the wrench to remove the bolt and set it aside. Now that the caliper bolt is removed, we can now begin to tackle the pads. In order to allow a clear place to work with the pads, I will secure the caliper to the strut. You can use twine, tie wraps, cloth, basically anything that can be looped through the hole and tied is sufficient. I use twine for this video. Now that the caliper is secure, we can move on to the next step. This next step is one of the easiest throughout the whole video. You simply grasp the pad and slide it out of its hanger. Make note of the orientation of the pad so that you can place the replacement pad in the same orientation. The pad will not fit in the housing unless orientated correctly. Also note the thickness of my pads. If they actually needed replacing, they will most likely be close to bare metal, which if left could cause serious problems to your rotor as well as bad brake response. Repeat the same procedure for the pad at the rear of the caliper. Once both pads have been removed, it's now time to drop in the replacements. Take one of the old pads and press it against the exposed pistons. Using the C-clamp, tighten the pad against the pistons, forcing them to compress. Do this until the C-clamp appears to be at its stopping point. This is to make sure the pistons are compressed enough to fit over the new pads once we insert them. Insert the new pads using the proper orientation. Once both pads are secure, give them a quick squeeze to ensure they're both flush to the rotor. Release the C-clamp from the pistons and remove the old pad. Lower the caliper down and put the bolt back. If it doesn't fit snug, then simply recompress those pistons and drag in. When changing your brake pads, it's also always good to change your brake fluid. Dirt, debris, or any other impurities can cause you serious complications. Simply pop your hood, locate this plastic cover towards the windshield. Pop off the cover and you'll see the brake fluid reservoir. Remove the cap, which will allow for better flow when you bleed the lines. This small rubber or plastic cap is called the bleeder cap. The valve beneath it allows for the brake fluid lines to be purged, removing any air bubbles, dirt, or any other debris which could be the source of any problems. As I stated earlier, my brakes and fluid are fine, so I won't be purging the lines in this video. We're in the home stretch now, boys and girls. It's time to put the wheel back on. Line the bolts on the rotor up with the corresponding holes in the rim and slide the tire on. Take the lug nuts and hand screw them onto the bolts. Tighten them by hand until you can no longer turn them. Now to provide some resistance against the wheel. We need to lower the car down a bit. We don't, however, want to lower it down completely. We don't want to put the full weight of the car onto the tire until the wheel is completely secure. There's a small knob to the left of the operating side of the jack. This releases hydraulic pressure, which in turn lowers the jack arm. By slightly turning it, it'll be able to lower the car down enough to keep the wheel still. Once the desired level has been reached, retighten the knob as to not let any more pressure escape. Now that the tire cannot spin freely, we can fully secure it. Using the breaker bar, the nuts should be fully tightened onto the bolts. Using a process called torquing, the nut should be tightened until the wrench emits an audible clicking noise. This noise is to indicate to the user that the nut is now locked tight around the bolt. Some breaker bars even have knobs to control how much force can be exerted before the bolt torques out. Do this for all 5 bolts. Now that this is complete, the rim plate can be replaced. Set the plate into the proper position and insert the bolt. Tighten it with the Allen wrench until the plate is flush. This last step, however simple, is one of the most important. So I really want to stress this. Before driving this car anywhere, you must pump the brakes. The brakes work on the principle of hydraulics. By pumping the brakes, you allow the pressure we released to build back up. If you fail to pump the brakes, whether it be reverse, drive, or park, good luck trying to stop. Well, that's it. I hope this video was very helpful to you. Don't forget to remove the jack from underneath the car and also replace the reservoir cap and cover before closing your hood. Projects like this are easy to do, and they save you a bit of money, which is always a plus. Well, until next time, guys.